Peanut allergies. They're a huge concern for so many families. But what is actually happening inside the body during a reaction? What makes it so incredibly dangerous? And, most importantly, what can we do to stay safe? We're going to break it all down.
Okay, let's just start with a number that really puts this all into perspective. 1 in 50. That's the number of kids affected by a peanut allergy. It's way more common than you might think. And for those families, it's a reality they live with every single day.
And the stakes here are just incredibly high. We're talking about a risk of anaphylaxis, which is a potentially fatal collapse. This isn't just a simple rash or an upset stomach. This is a genuine, life-threatening situation. So, here's our game plan. We'll start with why this is such a growing problem. Then we'll dive into what's happening inside the body. We'll look at how symptoms can go from bad to worse, define what an anaphylactic emergency really is, and wrap up with the most crucial part, how to stay prepared. All right, first up, let's cover the basics. Why is this becoming such a common issue, and who's really the most at risk? So at its very core, a peanut allergy is just the body having a severe overreaction to peanut protein. And it's something that shows up really early. For most kids, it appears within their first 3 years of life. Now, there are a few things that really increase the risk. It's a big problem for kids who already have conditions like asthma or eczema. And that combination of asthma and a peanut allergy, that can be an especially dangerous mix. Okay, so that's the what. Now let's dig into the science. What is actually going on inside your body that causes such a dramatic, severe response? Well, any food allergy is basically the immune system just going into overdrive. It mistakes a totally harmless protein for a major threat and just floods the body with this chemical called histamine. And it's that histamine that sets off the whole chain reaction of symptoms. Now, this is so important. It's what makes peanut allergies different. See, a lot of childhood food allergies actually get better, or kids even outgrow them. But peanut allergies, they usually get worse over time. For about 80% of people, this is something they have to manage for their entire life. And get this, it shows you just how incredibly sensitive the body becomes. Once you're sensitized, it takes almost nothing to set off a reaction. We're talking as little as 1/2000th of a single peanut. That's practically invisible. And it's exactly why cross-contamination is such a massive worry. So, with that kind of sensitivity, what does a reaction actually look like? Understanding how it progresses, from the first tingle to something much worse, is absolutely key to acting fast. It happens fast, really fast. Usually it all starts within minutes of contact. And it can begin with things that seem kind of minor, like some itching or a burning feeling right around the mouth. But from there, things can escalate. That initial itching can quickly turn into the face getting flushed, a skin rash, wheezing, and then the really scary stuff. The tongue and lips start to swell, making it hard to breathe. Then comes nausea, pain, and in the worst cases, collapse and losing consciousness. And you might think, well, just don't eat peanuts. But it's not that simple. Exposure can happen in ways you'd never expect. Simple skin or eye contact can do it. Inhaling dust from peanut shells, even being in close contact with someone who just ate peanuts. It can even happen through breast milk or certain oils you might put on your skin. This brings us to the most critical stage of all, anaphylaxis. This is that life-threatening outcome we mentioned right at the very beginning. This is the real emergency. When a reaction turns into anaphylaxis, there are 3 very clear visual signs to watch for. First, sudden swelling around the face. Second, the child's skin might go pale or even bluish. And third, the child could go limp or floppy and then collapse. Recognizing these is absolutely vital. Let's be perfectly 100% clear on this. Anaphylaxis is a medical emergency. You do not wait. You do not wonder if it'll get better. The response is immediate. Call for an ambulance and give adrenaline right away. That is the single most important thing you can do. Okay, so after all of that scary, intense information, let's pivot to the most empowering part. Let's talk about what we can actually do. This is all about being prepared and knowing how to avoid the risks. Staying safe really comes down to a few key rules. Number 1 is total avoidance of any and all contact. That means reading every single food label every single time, because recipes change. When you're eating out, you have to ask questions about ingredients,
especially with certain Asian foods where peanuts are common, like in satay sauce. And last but not least, you always carry an emergency kit with an adrenaline autoinjector, like an EpiPen.
Being prepared also means you have to be aware of potential cross reactions. Someone with a peanut allergy has a much higher risk of also being allergic to tree nuts. We're talking walnuts, cashews, almonds, you name it. It's a really important conversation to have with your doctor. And what about prevention? Well, there is some advice out there. It's suggested that moms who have their own history of allergies might want to avoid peanuts while they're pregnant and breastfeeding. And it's also believed that exclusively breastfeeding for the first 6 months can help give the baby some protection. So, we've covered the science, the symptoms, and the safety plan. The biggest takeaway here is that while this is a relentless condition, it is manageable, which leaves all of us with a final question to think about. Knowing everything we now know, what part can each of us play in making our schools, our restaurants, our whole community safer for that 1 in 50 child?